Okay, g'day guys. My name's Ollie and I'm going to be delivering my presentation to you online today. I should let everyone know that the reason that you are watching me through video at the moment is that I'm actually out working in the outback for the next couple of weeks, and so I couldn't make it for this presentation, but hoped that the online option would suffice. I've sent Claire my PowerPoint, which hopefully has the opening slide, Gender and Peace Building, Bamyan Demining is open on it right now. And I'm just going to crack on and I'll indicate when I'm moving to the next slide, so what I'm talking about corresponds with what you're looking at. Okay, so moving across to the next slide now. So Afghanistan is a nation rebuilding. Afghanistan has been mired in conflict for over 40 years. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded to support the Afghanistan communist regime, and in response, the US funded Mujahideen rebels to fight against the Soviets in what was one of their many proxy wars during the Cold War conflict. In 1989, the Soviet Union withdrew and opened the second theatre of conflict for Afghanistan, which was tribal warlord against tribal warlord. Now, if you look across to the map on the image here, you can see that the ethno-linguistic split within the country is fairly diverse, and Pashtun and Tajik groups make up the majority of groups in Afghanistan. Now in '96, the Taliban took control of Kabul and amid the chaos established themselves as the legitimate government. Now, based on the split of the map here, you can see that establishing control over a wide range of ethno-linguistic groups is not going to lead to peace, and the lack of infrastructure within the country means that many of these groups are isolated. In 2002, only 50% of roads in country were paved, and as all peace-building operations, Afghanistan being no different, many NGOs and countries that involve themselves in the peace-building process look to improve infrastructure before they move to peace-building in other areas. Now moving on to slide 2. So Afghanistan as a nation rebuilding in their mine clearance program. Now, Afghanistan has opened its pioneering mine clearance program in 1988, 9 years after the Soviets first moved conflict operations into the country. Now, initial UN efforts to assist in Afghanistan's demining program were taken by the United Nations Office of the Coordinator of Humanitarian and Economic Assistance Programs relating to Afghanistan. It's a tongue twister, UNOCA. And being the first of its kind in the world, mine action in Afghanistan faced enormous challenges. The clearance of explosive remnants of war required ongoing painstaking work, and demining crews worked in sequence to clear all land and return it to its productive use. And productive use in Afghanistan is of course agriculture, and it is vital to the growth of the new economy. Now, mine clearance, and particularly in the conflict zone like Afghanistan, an ongoing conflict zone, is particularly difficult work. And with no real UN presence, the UNOCA looked to develop 5 non-governmental organisations tasked with the coordination and actioning of the demining program. Now, run with a comparatively small number of UN staff, the 5 Afghan NGOs developed an intergenerational capacity to work and skill build and develop a collective professional knowledge which works through to this day, and with the group of women deminers that operate in Bamyan. We'll get to that soon. Now, the point that will be covered more in detail below, being the actual operation of the mine clearance in Afghanistan. When troops and states conduct mine clearance, they'll often only clear corridors of land so that troops and vehicles can move through. But with Afghanistan and with civilian clearance, they're looking to clear every mine, like all explosive remnants of war, so that the country is safe, and the 8,000 folks the proportion of the 8,000 folks that die across the world in Afghanistan are no longer maimed and killed. And so it's a civilian operation, and civilians are involved in the peace building process from the very beginning. So now moving to slide 4, we're just going to take a quick sidestep here and examine the UN and its relationship with women. Now, the UN has these goals, Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and they work to, as you can see, sorry, not yet, but they work to establish consistent peace building and development parameters for participating states. So, a centerpiece of this initiative is Goal 5, and Goal 5 is the achieving of gender equality and empowering all women and girls. And Goal 5 relates to Resolution 1325, which built upon a bunch of other resolutions in the late 1990s, essentially saying that, or recognising, the role that women should play in peace building, and the reason they need to play it being that they are disproportionately affected by conflict, given their involvement during the fighting. And the UN recognises that, that women still face opposition to becoming leaders in their communities in developed and developing states alike, and limited access to economic opportunity, bolstered by legal barriers, prevents women from gaining financial independence, and a lack of female representation in politics prevents the actioning of UN SDG 5 when it comes to in-country action. And so there's a lot of work for the UN to do, and when they move around peacekeeping operations, they like to use these SDGs as a sort of, centerpiece or keystone in facilitating the peace building. So moving across to women in Afghanistan. And so as was the case in 1979 for the Soviets, the United States and their incursion in Afghanistan was linked to peace building. Now, as per SDG 5, the First Lady to George W. Bush, Laura Bush, in 2001 spearheaded a US program to help women in Afghanistan. And yet, 19 years on, Afghanistan is still ranked the worst place to be a woman in the world. A couple of quick facts here for you. 2/3 of women in Afghanistan do not attend school, and 87% of women are illiterate. And furthermore, oppression is entrenched by the ongoing forced marriage system, one that limits the independent growth of Afghani women and girls. Now, it is known that perceived gender roles are directly correlated with culture, and in male-dominated cultures, autonomy and strength is emphasised as core values, and are supposedly necessary to survive in remote communities. Now, that, yes, Afghanistan is remote, and you'll see on the slide below how remote Bamyan province is, but when you have those entrenched perspectives, it tends to limit the involvement of women, and when that limitation is further entrenched by religion and ethno-divide, you can see where Afghani women sit in terms of the country's hierarchy. Basically, a patriarchal society built for men acts as a limiting factor for women. So when you've got a society that's marred by conflict for so long, 40 years, and obviously the system doesn't work, well, the development of a new system needs to involve the actors that haven't been involved before, and so that's the women. So jumping across to the 6th slide, this is an aerial shot of Bamyan province, and you can see here how remote and rural it actually is, and how large the land is. How large it is, and how much is needed to be cleared. So this is the basis for Bamyan and women deminers, and essentially engaging women in peacebuilding in Afghanistan can begin with the breaking down of the entrenched gender perspectives. Demining, an inherently dangerous task, is a way to dismantle those entrenched gender norms. Women can directly contribute to the safety making of their country, assuming leadership roles within the demining program, while affording themselves the economic and free-thinking independence through further work or tertiary study. So essentially they are using this program as a way to kind of break down those norms, break down those perspectives, and provide women with the economic independence that they deserve in a country that hasn't done so yet. Now, Bamyan and women deminers, and what does that look like? Mine clearance in Afghanistan moved to small-scale crack operations as early as '95. They used to use this large swathe clearing approach, which is fine, like that works well, but as countries like the United States and other NGOs move out of Afghanistan, the legitimate government's going to have a lot less money to play with, and they're going to need to rely on small-scale teams to address the dropping quantity of ERWs within the country. the toolbox approach is the approach that that local demining teams work with, and you can see on slide 9 here there's an image of a toolbox setup, and it's pretty archaic, it's pretty basic. It looks a lot like my toolbox in my truck, but I mean, yeah, I've only got one rope, but they've got two. But anyway, it seems to be archaic and basic, but ultimately that sort of small scale operation is actually quite effective, and the local community, seeing their community members involved in the peace building, is using these methods is all the more worthwhile. So, Bamyan and the women deminers, who are they? Well, the women-led demining effort in the Bamyan province is underway. The $450,000 pilot program, inaugurated in 2018 by the United Nations Mine Action Service, has the two primary aims. The first is to equip women with skills to lead safety making in their own communities, as per our conversation before. And as women are affected by male violence, they have the unique role of peace building and establishing community trust and safety where men cannot. It's particularly poignant in somewhere like Afghanistan. And obviously the second option, which we've already discussed, is the opportunity to throw off those entrenched gender roles and thrive in a new profession, facilitating the building of respect within the community that is deserved but also proven by the program. Now, moving on quickly here, because I know that I'm running over time. We've got a couple of deminers here. This is Marfat. She's 31 and been involved in the program since 2018. And to slide 12, we have Jamila, and she's 35. Now, Jamila, her father was involved in demining, and her family are not okay with her doing it, but they live in Bamyan, and Bamyan is one of the most progressive provinces in Afghanistan, and they're actually okay to some extent with her getting out there and doing her thing. And she doesn't necessarily enjoy the work, but she thinks it's valuable. So I found these two images on a foreign policy article, and you can find that on the internet as well. And moving across to our final slides now, we've got Bamyan to be declared mine-free this month, and that is October of this year, right now. And the team will still be based in the province to respond to other ERW reports and continue community education. But some members of the team are hoping to move their monies to university for further education. Now, you can see there the 3 points, and obviously Bamyan will return to agriculture. And so, final slide now. So what can this tell us about peace building? Well, peace building needs to involve all members of community and state, and it's absolutely necessary to ensure that, that the peace building, the vision of peace building, or the vision of a new nation, incorporates all that are going to be involved. Peace building is often more successful with an introduction of an independent actor. And that independent actor, being women in Afghanistan, can act as a sort of mediation. They can act as a new figure. They can act as a promise and a hope and a vision. And that's exactly what this team of women deminers is doing. And finally, in peace building in countries where the patriarchy rules is all the more difficult. So the breaking down of those gender norms is absolutely vital to new growth. It doesn't matter what Afghanistan does in terms of its infrastructure. If they still have that entrenched sexism, the country isn't going to recognise the economic value of half of its population, a whole group of smart, intelligent women. And so, a bit of a meta one for you here. Questions? We can see. If this video is the one that you're watching, you're not going to be able to ask the questions. But I suppose talk amongst yourselves with the short minute that you have left, allotted in my 15-minute time slot. I'm sorry I can't be there. I wish I could. I like presenting. But yeah, feel free to drop me a line if anyone wants to have any questions, or you can give me a bell on 0480 261 735. Put me on speakerphone and I'll talk to the room. All right, thanks very much.